You're listening to Breakaway Wealth, the show designed to help you build wealth faster, think bigger, and break out of the herd. Now, here's your host, Jim Oliver. Before we jump into today's show, we have some exciting news to share with you. Our brand new online community platform is now live. Get access to free on-demand, in-depth training courses on topics like infinite banking, cryptocurrency, real estate investing, and much more. Just go to community.createtailwind.com. That's community.createtailwind.com, or check out the show notes of this episode to find the direct link to request to join the community. Now, on to the show.
Welcome back, Breakaway Wealth. I'm your host, Jim Oliver, and with me today, I have Jenn and Joe, Delle Fave. Welcome, guys.
Hi.
Hey, thanks for having us.
You're welcome. I'm excited that you guys are on, and the audience might not know this, but we just recorded your show yesterday. So I'm going to act, audience, like we didn't do that and just kind of get to know you guys from scratch organically. And so why don't you guys just start off, introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
Well, my name is Joe Delle Fave. That's my beautiful wife, Jenn Delle Fave. We're full-time real estate investors now, and fast forward to today, it wasn't like this for a very long time. It was like a fascination, like a dream that we were going to have one day that we're going to be able to walk away from our jobs. Jenn used to be a teacher. I worked at a car dealership. And one day we're going to get married. We're going to have kids. And Jen's going to walk away from teaching. And I'm going to walk away from my dealership job. And we're going to do this full-time and travel. And even one day, maybe even move to Florida. Mm-hmm. And so that was always the dream, but it was like one of those things that felt so kind of far away. And it was like more of a fantasy than what we were actually accomplishing. We were doing it. It felt slower, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it just kind of started with, like most people, one rental at a time. When I first met Joe in 2008, I owned my own house. He owned his own house. And yet, even though we met in January, by the summertime, he's dragging me to all these like really gross rundown properties. And little did I know his big vision was to own quite a few of these and eventually, escape what he now refers to as the golden handcuffs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we did that, one property, every other year, every few years, until we realized that going to the banks was only good for so long. And Joe had some friends at the banks who told him, after 10 properties, like, you have to have a plan because we're going to cut you off. You're not going to be able to scale anymore. And feeling a little defeated, we really just started diving into the world of what now is known as creative financing. And so basically being able to buy properties without having to go to the banks, without using any of our own credit, and honestly, little to no money down to sellers out there who find themselves in situations where they really do need the help to sell. And traditionally, it may not work best for them. And we're a really great option.
Yeah.
So I love that. I want to get into that. We're going to get into that in a minute, but again, the name of the show is Breakaway Wealth. So you guys both have a 9-to-5 job. By the way, Joe, I love how you always refer to your wife as beautiful. And that's true. And I love husbands that do that. So that's cool. But you guys both have this 9-to-5 job, different jobs. And actually, one job, because Joe, you're the finance manager at a dealership. And I don't want to tell you a story, but I just remember from yesterday and you're about ready to get this big promotion, right?
Yeah.
And Jenn, you're a teacher and they're selling you on the pension and benefits and all of this stuff, and your summer's off and you're, like all this stuff. They're trying to tell you, hey, it's cool. This is a great place for you. Just keep going back to school. Just get a bigger and bigger and bigger education, and we'll give you these little bumps up in compensation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's really what it was, because when we met, Jenn was a teacher getting her master's degree. So
But looking back, I was a struggling teacher. Sure, I owned my own house, but I was now racking up credit card debt trying to pay for my master's degree that I had to get to teach in New York State. And I just can't believe, looking back, how is that setting anyone up for success?
Well, that's another thing, is what they're doing is they're setting you up to have to stay because like you just said, they're making you more and more in debt, right? And I'm sure you guys were living in the Rochester area. By the way, half my neighborhood, I think, is from Rochester. So yesterday I played golf after our interview, and my buddy Rich Spencer, who's been there forever, and he's on the board of Bishop Kearney High School up there and everything. And he's like, "What's their last name?" And he goes, so he starts asking me questions. I'm like, I told him your last name, but then, that's where my knowledge stops on your Rochester connection. But Rich has a place up at the Finger Lakes up at Cuca Lake, and one of my favorite places to go in the summer. I noticed I wasn't invited this year, by the way, but the last couple of years I've gone up and spent a week or so with him and his wife Kim. My granddaughter's gone to sailing camp on Cuca Lake, and that part of New York, which I didn't even know existed until a few years ago. It's a really cool place.
Fun fact, we got married on Cuca Lake.
Yep.
Did you really?
Overlooking, at a winery.
Oh, and you know what? I probably know that winery because is it like by Lakeside Golf Course?
I don't know.
This one, there's a golf course close by. It's Heron Hill is the one we got married at.
I'll tell you what, I'm pretty sure because I saw it's up on the hill a little bit.
Yeah.
Everything's up on the hill. But no, I think I drove right by that one. That's cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful area. And that's really like where we got started doing this because Jen was, born and raised there. I was too. And when we thought, hey, one day Jen could walk away from teaching, like it felt so far down the road. But once we got married, she was like, all right, let's have kids. It's go time. We had a couple properties and we started having babies. So she got to walk away from teaching first, which made more pressure for me at my job to perform because now that job is paying for the whole household. So as I'm moving up the corporate ladder, we'd buy a Burr property where we were buying it with cash. We would renovate it, rent it out, refinance, blah, blah, blah. Right. But we found out before it was even that name because we were taking extra cash out of the deal, right? From the cost of the renovations and the purchase of the house, we'd even get more money out. So we loved that strategy at first until they told us they'd cut us off. And we really found this because my buddy bought a course on TV in the year 2000. And that's when I did my first deal. So that's what made us fall in love back then. But
so I love what you, okay. So, again, I just kind of think as we're talking, so we kind of covered what Jen was going through, but now Jen, she stops being a teacher. She's going to be a full-time mom. And now all the pressure goes on you, which is exactly what a sales organization wants, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
They want you to have more pressure, have a bigger, standard of living so that you got to work harder. They got you right where they want you, but then you guys had a better plan. So it's funny that you said that about the courses, because when you said little to no money down, again, go all the way back to the 80s where there was all of these courses that you could buy and things that you could buy to do that, right? And everybody go, oh, that's BS. You can't do that. Because the majority has never been right about anything, right? The majority of teachers, the majority of executives in car dealerships, they're not right. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's just true, right? So you guys break away from the herd, and like most things in life, it doesn't happen overnight. But then tell me how you found that niche. Well, you said it because you said the bank was going to cut you off, right? So then you said, well, wait a minute. What about this other way? So explain to people, because I still think there are doubters listening to the show. Hey, you can't really do that. I'm never going to find anybody that's going to sell or finance. So talk about what you mean by creative financing and give me an example of a deal.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, at first, I didn't even know this was a real thing. And I've been in the real estate life but my whole life because my dad had rentals, right? But I got my first deal 2000. Fast forward to 2016. Now we've already bought in some properties. I've wholesaled now. We have some rentals. Nothing crazy, but we had some things going on while I'm working, right? While we're married and having kids, little ones too at this point in our life. But once I got on Google and YouTube in 2016, this is where I got back onto how to buy these real properties without going to banks, without using a ton of cash and without having to use credit anymore. And when I first saw this, I was like, there's no way. There's no way that's going to work. Catch, right? There's got to be something. So I went down the rabbit hole and learned everything I could for about 6-7 months. I was listening to every YouTube thing, everything out there, reading all the books that I could. I took Jen out to dinner one night And we maybe had a glass of wine or two. And I say, hey, listen, like this is definitely what we want to do. However, there are some questions that I still don't know. So I think what we should do is probably hire somebody who could help us with that. And so what we did at that point, we spent a lot of money, but we hired somebody to help us, like a coach, who walked us through how to do that very first deal. So I'll kind of explain how that worked. But we found somebody who inherited his grandfather's home. And it was a turnkey house. He lived about an hour away, but he was renting it to a coworker and he didn't want to anymore. And it didn't need any work, but he's like, I want pretty close to retail. He's like, I don't want some low cash offer. And I said, I can make that work if you're open to terms, which we agreed on was I was going to pay his price, which is, I think, $80,000. But what we did is we negotiated terms, which meant instead of going to Bank of America, his name was Steve. I'm going to pay Bank of Steve every month. And that's exactly how I explained it to him. So I didn't have some like savvy explanation. I actually kept it very basic on purpose so everybody could clearly understand what's going to happen. But we'll buy the property. We'll close on it like a traditional sale. But I'm just going to pay you payments every month. So how we did that deal was we bought it with $100 down, which I had to force him to take when we signed the paperwork at McDonald's, because I knew in order to have a deal, I had to have him take this $100 deposit. And he's like, no, you're great. We love you guys. Keep it. And I'm like, no, take your wife out to dinner. But he took it eventually. But $100 down, I think we paid about $3,500 in closing costs. And he agreed to a 0% mortgage with a $500 a month payment. And this is the first house that we bought that was an investment property that was turnkey, where the roof isn't needing to get replaced and I don't have to go in and do all this stuff to it. I think we had to take out like some old furniture from the previous person living there because they left like a couch behind, but that was all really easy stuff to do, especially because I paid my guys to do it because I had to work. So it was even easier for me to just write a check. Well, she did. But that's when we did that first deal. And we bought our first turnkey house with a few $1,000s and a 0% mortgage and a really low payment. And then what we learned was this strategy of not only just having this property, but now how to get paid, like to buy it. So when we learned how to do rent to own, our renters on that deal, I believe, gave us $8,000 to move into the house. And then we were charging them, I think it was about $1,250 for rent. So we were cash flowing about $500 a month because there were some taxes and things like that taken out of it. Mm-hmm. But we also learned that they are responsible for the maintenance and repairs. So we don't get the phone call that, oh, my light bulb went out and you have to send over your guy to replace the light bulb, or, and they want to do it because they're going to plan on owning that house down the road. And sure, it's going to be those people end up buying it years later. And then we got a big old check then too. So it was kind of like the best of both worlds. So where we got a chunk of money to buy that house up front. We had no credit, nothing tied into that deal. We were cash flowing every single month without the phone calls. And then finally down the road, when my renter did finally qualify for that mortgage years later, we got what they call the Backend check too. So it's like our 3 favorite ways to get paid on one deal without the headaches. And then once we kind of figured that out, we're like light bulbs galore. Like, yeah, there's no way we're going to do anything else other than this. So we started what we call like the Ferris wheel. So if you ever gone to the amusement park, you see the big Ferris wheel. Well, we figured it's like when they get on, we get that paycheck. And then when they're on, they're spinning every single month, we're getting that cash flow. And then once in a while, somebody gets off, and that's when you get your big back-end check. So the name of the game is just to keep filling your Ferris wheel. So that's what we do. So like we have a deal my wife and I talked about yesterday, not far from where you're talking about vacationing in upstate New York.
Yeah.
Perfect example. People bought the house just 1 year and 3 months ago. It's a turnkey house on a couple acres in an area where there's a lot of like Airbnbs and bed and breakfasts. It's a really cute area of the state, close to Connecticut, Massachusetts, Vermont, New York City's 2-hour drive, Boston's 2-hour drive. So it's in a really neat spot.
Yeah.
And the sellers already moved. They're gone. They said, Joe, Jen, if you give us just $10,000 down, you could take over my old loan. I don't have to go to a bank now, in which I didn't know back then, guys, when I first got started. So here's a strategy. I didn't know that I could buy real estate and take ownership of it. But if the seller has a loan, the loan could stay in their name. And I don't have to assume it. I don't need to get authorization from the bank. I don't have to get my credit checked. I don't need W-2s. I don't need to run a mile in under 6 minutes. Like all of those things that really appraisals that usually could slow down deals. It became way easier. So once we kind of started doing these strategies, we realized now we could scale. right? And we could scale, and we could now not be capped by a bank, because once again, when we found that strategy of how to get paid, that's really what I think.
Well, most importantly, we broke away from,
Yeah.
The 9 to 5, or in his case, honestly, most nights were 9 to 9.
Yeah.
And the time away from us was what really just killed me. I'm like, he's working so hard. I finally find somebody I want to spend the rest of my life with, and we don't see each other, and I'd bring the kids up to the dealership, but it's only so good. I mean, he would eat cold pizza for lunch if there was a slice left on a busy Saturday, or, nothing at all. And it's just a really unhealthy way of living too, if you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's funny because stress is the root of all illness and disease, right? I mean, there's a lot of literature out there that says that, and the stress that we'll put ourselves under to support our families, to provide, to do all of these things is amazing. And then we're surprised. I mean, I've had friends, in their early 50s, brain tumors. And my belief is that a lot of that comes from stress. And so getting out of that stress is it's life saving, So what I really like is that you just gave two different strategies, two different deals there, really, that are deals that people hear about. They might watch a YouTube video about, or they've read a blog or something about. But it's like you're saying, hey, we did this. This is an actual case, found it. And I know the answer to this, but as you do some of these, then it's amazing. Opportunities find cash. The opportunities find knowledge. So when you know how to do it, you know what to look for, and people bring you things. So you guys in your organization now, you coach people how to do this, right? Mm-hmm. Tell me about that.
Well, it kind of happened organically. Good old pandemic is when we went full time with this. And I just love social media for so many reasons. And being a little bit isolated up in New York during COVID, I really went to Instagram and I just shared our journey. We would go live and kind of talk about the deals we were doing. And literally people coming through messaging like, can I please hop on? I want to pay you. Can I hop on a phone call? I want to know how you're doing this, because it was not as mainstream for sure. But I think too, we are just like everyday people, Jenn and Joe, car salesman, teacher. And so the way we present our information, it's not crazy out there. Like, we make it very real. And part of it might be because I was a 7th grade English teacher, so I know how to break things down pretty simply. Because honestly, I didn't understand it at first. He kind of got it a lot. He definitely got it a lot quicker than I did, like terms and all the words and the numbers. But it's not complicated unless you make it complicated. So I think, from that, we just decided that, he trained a lot of people, and being a former teacher, we just fell in love with being able to help others. Because as there's no greater feeling than setting other people up for success too. When you get on the other side and you're like, wow, like away from the herd, like I can do what I want on a Wednesday, if I block my schedule off correctly.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah.
And the way we got into it was kind of weird, because like when COVID happened, 2 weeks before COVID happened, I'm still at my job. We bought some properties now. I had a couple deals that we've done creative finance now too. 2 0% mortgages in this time frame. So we're like, this is really great. We had, the kids are going to go to school in the fall, and then Jen's going to go full time. And then in no time, I'm going to walk away. And then 2 weeks before COVID happened, my boss takes me out to lunch, says, we're buying 12 new stores. We're going to give you this huge promotion because we're going to have you help open them up and train all these people. And then, 2 weeks later, he was, COVID happens. They close all the dealerships down. We're home for a couple weeks together.
No, it was really like going back to that time frame where he's all excited. He's getting this promotion. We go and buy all these new suits. He's never worn the suits.
Never.
And I've never felt so conflicted, because I'm like, well, wait a minute. I thought like we have this dream, this passion, like you're going to go spend more time away from our family, and you're going to make a couple $1,000 more. Like, I don't really get it, but I'll support you.
Yeah.
And then COVID happened. So
yeah, it was the freakiest thing, because like when that happened, Jen's like, you're not going back to work.
I was so excited. He was scared, I think, a little bit, like, oh, like I'm going back to work. Like, you're crazy. And I'm like, well, this is it. We're doing it.
Well, this is exactly what Jim talks about, though, because it's that second that you actually break that chain, it's like, what the heck is going on? Right?
It took you a while to
20 years of being in the same type business. And then all of a sudden, the day that chain breaks, like your head, it is a little bit of a mind game, because now it's all like, okay, like The only time we're going to eat is if we go out and get it. Right.
You kind of look at the chain like, hey, can I put it back together? Like, wait a minute, I know it's broken, but I mean, like, if I needed it again, and you can't really
broken.
look at it that way. You gotta burn the ships, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
we burn the boats.
You burn the boats, and but there's a couple things that you said. You said, hey, this friend had this course. We did this. We educated ourselves, and so you in coaching people, what do you find like is that one thing that puts them over the edge? The one thing that they go, okay, you know what, I can do it. Is it their first deal? Is it taking a course? Is it them saying, hey, look, if I break the chain, are you guys going to be here to help me? What is that? Is that one thing?
Me personally, I think it's having a series of small wins.
Yeah.
It's having a series of small wins. Like Jen would always break this down, which sounds kind of weird. And I never heard it before until she said it, but say it.
I don't know. I heard it or read it somewhere. It was like, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? But I don't know. I would never eat an elephant, but yeah. Or, eat the frog first, right? Like do the hard thing and, keep moving ahead. I call it messy, massive action and just repeatedly like keep going until like you do the darn thing you say you're going to do, and really having goals and commitments. That was really helpful for a lot of our clients too, is like you have a goal that you're trying to achieve, but you have a commitment that you like need to do weekly, daily, monthly.
Yeah. And I think the thing too is, so you have a burning desire, right? And so the big thing for our clients, I'd say always, it was no different than when we went full time. Before we trained anybody else, we brought some staff on. And that's what our coach says, Joe, Jen, you can't do it yourself. Like you got to bring people on. So on Instagram and Facebook, we put out some posts and we hired like a 19-year-old guy who was a pizza delivery guy, 22-year-old bartender, one young lady, she was in high school at 18. She still works for us 3 years later. And even Brittany, she was like a 30-year-old nurse in Pittsburgh. They didn't have real estate experience, but they were willing to learn. And everybody was reaching out to us saying, I will work for you for free if you teach me what you're doing.
That's
so
awesome.
What we did is once we started teaching them what to do and they were doing it, we were all doing it together. We went from doing one deal a year to doing a couple deals every month now.
That's awesome.
And so when we're sharing with everybody how we're buying all these properties without using banks, without credit, and here's another one, and we're doing it, people said, like, take my money, show me how to do this. And at first we were kind of too busy because our team was growing. We're getting 8 deals a month now, 10 deals we'd hit sometimes. And it was picking up speed. But it came to a point where people like show us what to do. So all we did is we showed them exactly what we taught the teenagers to do.
Yeah.
And it was really, we're an open book. So first step is to do this. After you do that, come back to us, tell us how that went. We're going to answer any questions. And then after you do that, I'm going to give you the second step what to do. Just go do that one small little task. Once you do that, come back to me. I'll answer any questions. And then I'm going to give you the next step. And so by doing it that way, that one bite at a time, before you know it, they're making it all the way down the deal. And I got a pizza delivery guy at 19 years old closing deals. Abby, I think when she was 18 or 19, she did 3 deals at like 18.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I think once we found that easy peasy thing, thanks to Jen, because she could help break it down into easy steps with probably her background. Because I know when I would get into it, I would start saying all these like words and terms and like nobody knew what the heck I was talking about. And so once we started kind of explaining it to where it's a little bit more simple, everybody started just being able to catch on.
You know what's really cool about that is, one, you're helping young people see a different path from the very beginning, but also taking people that don't seem like they're not sure what their future is going to be, their vision is. But then once they see it, they're like, hey, then show me how to, then they get excited, right? Once you have that enthusiasm, that motivation, then it's just like, what path do you take, right? And it's just kind of having trust that you probably can't lay out the path exactly the way it's going to be, but it's just, it's going to be great if you keep going up. And so I love that you guys are scaling and you're doing that and you're helping more and more people. How do people find you guys online or social media? I mean, we'll put it all in the show notes too, but just what's the easiest way?
Well, for me, I love Instagram. So just my name, Jenn, Jenn, Delle Fave. And I like to share, videos, stories. We go live, fun stuff over there. Just like a great place for other investors or people who are looking to learn.
Yeah. Awesome. And I think the same thing for me, Joe, Delle Fave, Facebook, Instagram are my 2 favorite ways. We do give away our script for free. So if anybody wants to know, like, what are the questions that people on our team ask, like, it's all on there. We even give away our marketing thing for free for you guys. So what we use to generate off-market leads, we don't pay for them. You don't have to pay for them.
Right.
And our clients don't. We found ways to do it for free. So we give all those secrets away. There is no secret. We just make it well known, because once you could kind of untap that, how do I get leads? How do I talk to these people? What questions do I ask? Now you just start taking those action steps. And before you know it, you're having conversations with sellers who have off-market properties.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you get the deals. So we don't keep it back. We give it all the sauce away. So creativefinanceplaybook.com is where you could find all of those things. And I will say, I'm a deal maker. This is my thing. Like, I spend so much of my life looking at deals. I just love it. So if you are working with a seller who's got a turnkey house and it's nice, and they need to sell it, but maybe that low cash offer doesn't work, like, you could do those deals on those houses. Those are what we call like those nice, beautiful houses in nice neighborhoods. If you got a seller like that, I mean, shoot me a message. I mean, DM me. You could even call my cell phone. I mean, text me. We make deals that way. We could JV on things. So my personal cell phone is 585. That's a Rochester area code, because that's where I'm from. But it's 585-207-2240. And if you have something we need to look at, like, don't throw that lead in the garbage.
Mm-hmm.
We could help somebody and make some money together.
So I love that. And one thing, that's where the kind of the rubber hits the road, really, is people that don't really know how to do it, or they're syndicating and they really don't want to do a deal but you get some great deals. I ended up buying companies because people would come to me and say, "Hey, Jim, are you interested in helping me with my company?" Or, "Hey, my uncle has a company and this is going on." And I mean, I probably looked at, thousands and end up buying whatever number, but it's always cool to look at these deals and you know what to do. And it's not, they always say it's not brain surgery, right? Well, there's only so many things that can go wrong with your brain too. But I've bought deals just like you, 0% financing.
Yep.
I still think the math, when you show somebody the math, you write me a check, like I'm buying a business. You write me a check for $1 million. Okay. Just as an example, what are you going to do with that $1 million? Well, I'm going to put it in the market. Okay. You're going to take $1 million. You're going to get taxes. So you're going to have 600 grand or whatever left. And now you're going to go put that in the market. What do you think your rate of return is going to be if you want to make sure that you conserve that principal? And they always say a number way higher. And then I show them, it's really probably 3%, maybe 4% at the most. And they're shocked that their $1 million is going to produce 20 grand a year or something.
Right.
And I said, well, wait a minute. How about if you took the $1 million? And that seems fair. I'll give you $1 million for the business, but we do it the same way on terms. Now you just saved on taxes. You saved on this. You're going to, and you try to get them to what's that monthly amount that they're looking for. This one guy in Tennessee, he was going through a divorce. He had to pay his ex a certain amount per month, a few $1,000s. He sold us his whole portfolio, 0% for that amount per month. So he could just say, I don't have to worry about her anymore.
Nice.
It's all these different motivations, but
you solved his problem.
Yeah.
Solved his problem, right? That's what and that's what we all do. So I love that you guys are doing this together, number one.
Yeah.
And I love that you'll work with your students, clients, doing JVs, and that you give a lot of stuff away. So look, audience, go check it out. I mean, this is what I tell everybody that comes on that gives offers like that. If anybody comes on and they're selling like their hardcore sales, their episode probably doesn't air. But they're, like if you're giving stuff away, you're going to help people, then go do it, because you're going to find out if you guys have an affinity with Joe and Jen, then you're going to be like, hey, I got, and if it's not a good match, then it's not a good match, but you got to at least go out there and check it out, have at least take that action step. All right. So let me ask you guys 2 questions as we wrap up. And I got to remember that you have a connection to Earl Nightingale. So I got to remember that right before we wrap up. But tell me, through all of this journey and breaking away, what's the best advice somebody ever gave you?
For me, I would say, don't take advice from anybody that you wouldn't want to trade places from or with. Yeah.
Like
Like
that one.
anybody that you don't want to be in their shoes. Because once I thought of things that way, I was like, okay, you know, because you really got to look at a whole picture with somebody. So
Yeah, no, I like that one. Joe, how about you?
I could think of the advice that my old boss gave me, who actually was the one that worked for Earl Nightingale.
Yeah.
And I was 21 at the time, and he was a very big influence on my life because he came from super poor to mega wealthy. And he told me, he was like, you know what, he's helping me and he's giving me advice and guidance and things like that. And he's like, you know, I'm not going to be here forever, but what you need to do is you need to read the books. You need to listen to the audio cassettes. You need to always be a student and never stop learning. So get all the Zig Ziglar, get the Think and Grow Rich, get all these things. And when he explained to me, Earl actually told him, hey, I want you to read the book Think and Grow Rich, and then tell me what happened. He read the book. He went back to Earl and he's like, hey, I read the book. He's like, the book talked to you. And he's like, no. He's like, go read it again. True story. He reads the book a second time. He comes back to Earl. He's like, hey, I read the book the second time. Oh, yeah, that was great. He's like, did the book talk to you? He's like, no. He's like, go read it again. And he's like, what the heck? He goes and reads the book the third time. And true as can be, he's told me the story. I can't tell you. He's like, it was like the book was actually talking to him and giving him the direction and instructions of what to do. And here's somebody who grew up in, you know, pumping gas in a gas station in Mobile, Alabama, to now he's living, I mean, just on a different planet. And so it's getting around those type of education, and really it's out there everywhere, and it's never been easier to get your hands on that stuff. So
I agree with that last part too. It's never been easier to go educate yourself today. You don't even have to go to Barnes and Noble and buy a book or buy Audible books like you guys did.
Yep.
You don't have to do that, right? You can right now today, after listening to this show, you can go and get all the educate. You can take the next 8 hours and be educated. All right, last question. It could be a different book, same book, either way. But if God came down from heaven and only allowed you to retain the knowledge from one book that you've read, what would that book be?
Mine's Think and Grow Rich.
I was trying to think of another, but every other book I've read, it honestly stems from Think and Grow Rich. And I get goosebumps as he's telling that story because I related to it. I went and bought a copy. I think it was 2017, 2018, and it was doing nothing for me. I was like, I get the concept, but whatever. But you betcha, in 2020, I bought a new copy. I highlighted, I underlined, I read slowly and carefully, and our lives literally changed.
You know what? I love that book too. And here's something that this is because today and yesterday we're talking about a lot of these Zig Ziglar. But I was in sales and I didn't realize that sales is really education, because the more that I understand real estate, the more that then the more that I'm going to want to get coaching from you, or that I learn your system or your scripts. That's why we give away so much stuff too on Infinite Banking, because I don't have to sell Infinite Banking. All I have to do is get somebody to understand it. Once they understand it, they're going to want to buy Infinite Banking. And if I help coach them and I help guide them, then they're going to come to me. I mean, so we have the same philosophy with that. So, but Tom Hopkins was an incredible sales guy. I could sell a JLG lift. By the way, this is back in the 80s. He had these cassette tapes. All of them broke because I listened to them so much. But he would say how to sell a JLG lift, but it was really solving the person's problem. It wasn't like, hey, you want to buy this shiny lift? And the thing that he would say is the champion goes back to the basics at least once a year. So when you think of that book, Think and Grow Rich, if we just went, if we talked on your show about the strangest secret, if all you did today was go and read Think and Grow Rich and commit to reading it until it talked to you, think about how many lives would be changed from just that one action.
Yep.
And that's what I love about this. That's why I'm excited every day to talk to people like you guys, and to talk to people out there that truly want to change their lives. I hadn't thought about the 18 and 19 and 20-year-olds, because I know some of those guys that work at our club here and stuff. And I love giving young people opportunities. Yep. A lot of people don't take the opportunities, but giving somebody the opportunity, when somebody does it, it's so rewarding and so fulfilling. So Well, I really thank you guys for being on here, and I would love for you guys to be on a master class or put a class on our community, and really kind of maybe dive into a couple of deals and just show people, because it's just giving people hope. And I always say hope is a terrible strategy, but
It's true.
but it's giving people just that little bit of belief. Maybe it's better than hope.
And I gotta say, once you find out how easy this is, the way we have it kind of worked it, you're gonna almost like, really?
Yeah.
And it is, and what our coach says is, he's like, business is easy, owners are complicated.
Yeah.
Right. So it's really, it's an easy thing. Like, hey, Jim, you want to sell this? I'll give you X for that. Right. So if you're able to help, like what you did buying that business, right? If you're able to just be great at helping people solve their problems, it's like Zig Ziglar. If you help other people get what they want, you'll get what you want too, right? So
you got to go out there and find a bunch of people with problems
and help them, right?
Help them. I mean, hey, I'm here to help. I mean,
I love it.
No, I don't want your help. Are you sure? You got a problem. So
right.
I love that, guys. Thank you so much again, and it's great to get to know you guys a little bit the last couple of days on these shows, and I can't wait till this comes out. And I know people will have a great positive response. So. Again, thank you so much. And we're going to end this the way we always do, with the incredible words of Earl Nightingale and The Strangest Secret. Take it away, Earl.
Here's the key to success and the key to failure. We become what we think about. Now let me say that again. We become what we think about.
Once again, thank you so much for taking the time to hear what was shared on today's podcast. If you are looking to discover new wealth building strategies, then go to community.createtailwind.com. That's community.createtailwind.com to join our free online community and get access to free courses and in-depth training videos designed to help you build wealth and break away from the herd. Click the link in the show notes to access the community today. Thanks again for listening.